Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, normally bring on a single guest to hear from them about a meaningful game from a particular moment in their life. You are here listening to Co-op episode 41? I should know this because I literally have it up and I just don't even remember. The number really doesn't matter, listener, but I am looking in my files to double check. You are listening to Co-op episode 41, where today I'm going to be talking with a couple of friends about Psychonauts, the original game, not the sequel, but Psychonauts 1, originally released in 2005. The co-op series, as you may know, are a little different from the normal one-on-one, just cozy interviews that I do with people about games. This is a format where I have a group of people on, although I have had just one person before, and it was really just back and forth, where we do an overview episode on a game. It's usually a game that I just feel like playing for that month. These come out every single month, and this is one that has a little more of a backstory to it for this episode. And my two guests, I couldn't be more happy to have on the podcast. Before I introduce them, though, if you are listening to this on our Patreon, thank you so much. This is one of your big ticket items every month. So thanks to all the DJ Toads out there. If you're listening to this by watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, give the video a like. And if you want to see, way more content from us and the creators of this show, and you want this in the audio format, you can check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/Super NPC Radio. We're also all over social media at Call Me By Your Game. Check us out. Couldn't do this alone because, folks, I mean, it's not Psychonaut singular, it's Psychonauts plural. And I've got a couple of the best psychic agents you could ever ask for on this episode. I got a couple of hot guys. So first, please welcome to the microphone someone who has been on, I'm going to go back and count them. I'm going to say at least 4 of these co-op episodes. Teo Yang.
Hello.
Wow, really made us wait for that. Hello there, pal.
Hello.
Hey, good to have you.
I am a psychonaut.
You absolutely are, and you've got all of your merit badges ready to go.
That's
I can
right.
see.
I specialize in anxiety.
And, and what power does that give you?
It makes you run really fast.
Okay. Hey, I love it. There's not just one of these folks we've got on the show. We've also got another guest, first timer to the co-op series, but guest that you will know from his Space Station Silicon Valley episode of the regular podcast earlier this year. Please welcome other hot guy, Ryan Creamer.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Didn't even make me wait for the hello like Teo did. I love it. You guys have got a real great dynamic. You're each bringing different things to the table, I think, on this
very
episode.
much so.
Yes. Folks, before we get into, more stuff, I want to give you a chance to share about yourself. If there's anything you want to, tell the listener or plug, feel free. Teo, we were just talking. You've been on, this is at least your 4th co-op, and I'm going to try to name them now. You were on the Celeste episode back in January or February 2021. So that was like episode 6 or something. You were on the... Gosh, I'm forgetting one at least. Ori and the Blind Forest, which we did earlier this year. You brought hot takes to that one. You're obviously on this one, Psychonauts. Am I missing another one that you may have been on?
Couldn't tell you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess that is more of my responsibility to do. I'm gonna look it up though and see if I can figure it out. But Ryan, this is your first time on the co-op series, buddy. I mean, it's got to be one of the honors of your life. How are you feeling today?
I'm extremely nervous. I'm doing a lot of fidgeting. And
Good.
I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, good.
Let me get in that brain, Ryan. Let me throw a door on your head.
Yeah, just dive right in there. Oh, Teo, you were also on the Halo Infinite episode.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Right.
But Teo, I know you through the UCB theater. You're a great writer and an actor. What else do you want people to know about you who might be listening today?
Well, I'm here really to plug my agenda, which is hashtag justice for Zach. the last name? McClendon?
Yes, this is good. This is going to tie into a lot of what we have going on today.
He
I
didn't
can't
deserve
wait.
what he got. He got a raw deal.
So this is like your thesis statement that we're going to unpack as we go along.
Yeah, we'll unpack as we go along.
Okay.
We can. It's a long road, you know. Kind of like developing a video game.
Do you say not like or kind of like?
Kind of like.
You know, I don't think there's a single difference. I think they're the exact same experience. Well, I can't wait for that. But Ryan, you know, I know you through Teo. We talked about this on your episode, but we went. Teo sort of like stealth made us become friends by taking us to the Game Awards 10th anniversary concert over the summer.
Yes, indeed.
My first ever trip to the Hollywood Bowl. But that's how I know you. What do you want to share with the people about yourself today?
I am going to take the opposite side. I had to Google to remember who Teo's talking about. Zach McClendon's. I was like, is this some sort of like?
He was like the project lead.
Yes. No, I don't have anything to plug, but yeah,
I love it. Well, and you know, so we're going to get into a little backstory about why we're doing this podcast today. I was saying earlier, most of the co-op episodes are just me trying to play games, new and old, throughout the year that I convince other people to play at least part of and join me for a discussion. Earlier this year, when we went to this, you know, magical, I don't know if you wouldn't necessarily call it a triple date. Would I just call it a date that we went to the bowl?
Call it a date.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be, you know, you add in Jeff Keighley, that's a double date right there.
Oh, man. Jeff, if you're listening, we're available.
Please, Jeff.
Please. Bring us to the Game Awards.
Come
on. So when we went to this concert, I was in the middle of watching the Double Fine's Psych Odyssey, the documentary about the making of Psychonauts 2, and I wouldn't shut up about it. So much to the point where I think like 2 weeks or so later, maybe my timeline could be off, one of you texted the group thread and was like, oh, by the way, I've been watching the documentary. And I think the other one of you either started it or was like, I'm also watching it. Can you corroborate this?
I think, Ryan, you watched it. And from the moment you talked about it, I was like, I'm never going to watch this thing. That's too long. That's insane. Absolutely insane thing to watch. And then, yeah, Ryan, you said you watched it. And I was like, and then I just was like, okay, let me try this first episode. And it's addictive.
Yeah.
So I was just like I every day was looking forward to watching an episode of that documentary.
Oh,
yes. Who needs reality TV when you have, you know, a 30-something part making of a tumultuous video game over the span of like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years that they did this? Just
7
crazy.
long years.
Yes. I had been, you know, I knew about Psychonauts for a while. I actually didn't know it was a game until we occasionally, Teo's been a guest for some of these on Video Games, a Comedy Show, another podcast we do these like, you'll like this, Ryan, I think you'll love this, maybe I mentioned it, these like fantasy football snake style drafts of like a particular console. So we'll basically just like each build a roster of 5 games by doing a snake style draft of, for example, this was the Xbox we did, I think in like 2021. And I was looking up like a list of best Xbox games because I didn't know a lot of them outside of like Halo and Fable. And I learned about Psychonauts 2. And then I saw it was on the PlayStation 2, which I also had. And so I bought it. So I'd had this game for like 2 or 3 years at this point, never played it. But having watched the doc, I was like, oh, I want to play Psychonauts 2, but I kind of want to play the first one. And I think, Ryan, you had spoke highly of it or had like some fond memories. So anyway, we all watched this documentary. We're texting about it for a while. And I was like, boys, let's play Psychonauts 1 for a co-op episode later this year. And you both agreed. And so here we are. Cat's out of the bag, folks.
Here we are. And you know what? Honestly, at the end of the day, if you're doing like a top 10 draft of Xbox or even PlayStation 2 games, I don't think Psychonauts 1 or 2 is going to be landing on anyone's.
Well, 2 definitely won't be on there because we haven't done our Xbox Series draft yet. But this is a game that I'll actually disagree, which I think this is going to get into like we'll eventually get into our discussion on the game. But I don't have entirely positive things to say about it, but I have more positive than negative personally. And for me, it ends up being a positive experience despite some of the shortcomings that I'm sure we'll talk about. What are you going to say, Teo?
I don't think it's a bad game by any means. I'm just saying it's like
just not like you wouldn't be in your 5. You wouldn't draft it.
It's a beating Tony Hawk.
Well, yeah, the skateboarding mechanic in this game not quite as good. But so that's why we're here today. That's why we're playing this game. I'm really excited to get into it. I played this game over the last month. But let's get into, before we do a little table setting of more about the game, our histories with it. I'll go ahead and kick off, which I basically got us into it already. I didn't know this game existed until about 2 or 3 years ago. I got it on PlayStation 2. It's not Xbox, which is like the console, you want to play this on an original Xbox, PC, or just Game Pass, which is probably the best way to play it because I played like the worst version of this game. But finally played it. Like everybody knows, I'm in my Tim Schafer era. I played Grim Fandango earlier this year for the first time. Folks, let me show you something that won't surprise you at all. I got a new phone case recently. And it is Manny Calavera on my phone case.
That's sick.
Yeah, I'm quite obsessed with that game at this point. Also a game that I think has massive issues, but I still adored. But yeah, that's very, very small experience for me with this game, and even with Tim Schafer's games. But now I'm like Double Fine crazy at this point. Ryan, what is your experience with this game? How far back do we go?
So this game was recommended to me in 2012. I was living in Detroit. This is more context than necessary, but I was living with a group of people. I lived in this house for like a summer, and this dude was like, dude, I think you're gonna love this game. I never had an Xbox or a PlayStation. We always had like Nintendo stuff.
Yes.
I think I got to it through Steam. And if I didn't play it that summer, I played it like shortly thereafter.
Cool.
So it came word of mouth recommended to me in 2012.
Nice. Had you played any of Schafer's games before this, or is this like the beginning for you?
I think that was the first one, yeah.
Okay. Have you gone back to play anything like that since? I can't remember what you had said before.
I think I have now played just about every Double Fine game.
Wow. Okay. This might be getting ahead of things too much, but is this like is Psychonauts 1 higher up on your Double Fine ranking? Is it lower?
Yeah, I am gonna throw down with you guys because it is high up on my list.
Okay.
I think in my top 10 favorite games of all time.
Oh, we have such a smattering. We've got like Ryan's the hottest on it. I loved my experience with it, but like it's not like an all-timer for me. And Teo is ready to throw it into the fire of Mount Doom. But Teo, what's your experience with this game? Was this your first time dipping into it for the podcast?
No, I think I played it not when it came out, but maybe like
okay,
I don't know, like a year or two. I think I played it on. I want to say I played it on Xbox.
Okay.
When it came out.
Nice.
And I think I've played almost every Double Fine game about 10 to 15% through. And then I drop off. I think I played every single game like that.
Well, you are
including
famous.
Psychonauts too.
Yes. Oh, so okay, that's really interesting. I'm excited to get into it even more with you as well. And was this now Ryan, this is like high on his Double Fine list. Is this low on yours, or is it like similar?
I guess it. So for Double Fine games, I guess it's high on there for games overall. I think I don't even think it's a bad game. I think it's really impressive. We can get into it, but
cool.
The for Psychonauts 1, there's like clearly this like want to emulate like a Ren and Stimpy style, like kind of Saturday morning cartoon vibe, which I think they did really well. And I think most games there are very few games with that, the ability to feel like, like a cartoon like that.
Yes, totally. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's like so many comparisons of just different like properties that as I was playing this game, I was like, oh, this kind of feels like Harry Potter to me, but it also feels like Nightmare Before Christmas, this and that. Yeah, so a lot of like touchstones that I felt like had like mixed into this Psychonauts stew that I ended up really enjoying, aesthetically at least. Okay, very, very cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about I'm going to do some table setting about this game. I want to talk about its history and context. My big surprise for you, Ryan, which I realize I should have just said earlier, is that I have in fact started watching the documentary for a second time at this point. Yes, I told Taylor this last night.
That was the unhinged thing you said to me last night. That's
yeah, absolutely psychotic of me to say, but I'm already back to, I'm on episode 12, which is when they do their amnesia fortnight, which can't recommend. They do a whole movie on a separate one. It's like an hour and 45 minutes. I've watched all their crap at this point. I love it. So I'm really in just like the like Double Fine zone. Anyway, Psychonauts, to set the table, is a 2005 a 3D platformer developed by Double Fine and published by Majesco for Windows, Xbox, and PlayStation 2 originally. It came out on April 19th, 2005. Little Connor was just a sweet little lad in 8th grade, finishing out junior high and getting ready to go to high school. It does say that here on the Wikipedia, so I'm not just inserting that. It's directed and written by Tim Schafer, who we've mentioned a lot, who is known, came up through LucasArts, was, a co-writer on The Secret of Monkey Island. I think the first game that he like co-led was Day of the Tentacle. Any experience with that from either of you? Because it's been hotly recommended to me recently.
I played Day of the Tentacle within either the past year or the past 2 years.
Ooh.
I think it's phenomenal. I think it's so good.
Dang.
I think I downloaded all the Double Fine games on iPhone. They had like a bundle, and I played it for a little bit.
I had one of those 15%ers.
Yeah, one of those 15%.
I love it. So that's what Schafer came to be known as, like a prolific like comedic games writer in a way, which I'm sure there's like a lot of that us three professional comedians really felt ourselves, possibly, I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth but mine, felt really drawn to and have felt drawn to as I played more and more of the games that he's worked on. This is the first game that Double Fine ever made. So when Schafer left LucasArts, this is the first game they made. I think Double Fine was created in like 2000, so it took 5 years to make their first game. And if you've watched the documentary Psych Odyssey, Psychonauts 2 had an incredibly tumultuous development cycle. Hashtag free Zach. And this game was kind of except it followed a similar path. And by followed, I mean it started the path because it's the first game. I don't know a ton about it, but what I do know, do you guys know about where the like idea for this game came from? Either of you? This is a pop quiz, by the way.
I've definitely can recall in like interviews, I know Tim Schafer talk. Was it like Full Throttle? There was like the idea. Yeah.
Ooh, ding, ding, ding. My favorite student, Ryan, got the correct answer.
Wow.
Teo, you're going to sit in the dunce chair. Yeah, it was, I think, during the development of Full Throttle, I haven't played that game, but the main character or someone goes on like a peyote trip, and the anecdote is like someone asked the character, like, what's the sky? What's the color of the sky in your world? And so Tim Schafer got the idea for like, what would it be like to be in someone's brain, and like, what would their psychosis reveal, all that stuff. So that was sort of the genesis for this game. Psychonauts itself follows Rasputin, known as Raz, a young boy gifted with psychic abilities who runs away from the circus to try to sneak into a summer camp for those with similar powers to become a psychonaut, which is a spy with psychic abilities. He finds that there is a sinister plot occurring at the camp that only he can stop. The game itself is centered on exploring the strange and imaginative minds, which we've talked about a little already, of various characters that Raz encounters as a psychonaut in training. He does this in order to help them overcome their fears or their memories of the past. As you're doing this throughout the game, helping someone successfully do this usually like opens a gate. I'm using the term gate, not a literal gate, although a gate in one sense, to progress through the game and continue. So as you help people, you gain more abilities or access points to continue through the game. You gain many psychic abilities. This game, I had already said, was where it came from, but it was really well received at the time critically, sold incredibly poor, and almost doomed the company itself. I think, according to Wikipedia, at this point, the game has sold 1.7 million copies. That's as of December 2015, so that's probably close to 2. Maybe they've gotten 300,000 sold on Steam by this point. And as we've also talked about, a sequel, Psychonauts 2, was released on August 25th, 2021. And I'm sure that documentary is going to come up a million more times. And Teo,
like a cult classic, right? It's like
yes,
yeah, it's like the Fight Club. Is that Fight Club a cult classic or like Pulp Fiction?
I don't know, but I know what you're trying to say. Maybe like Edward Scissorhands almost. Is that more of a, or am I just like giving a lateral example?
I think maybe like Rocky Horror Picture Show is a horror picture show of video games.
I'm just gonna say yes, because I could not tell you.
No, we should keep like, no, what if it's like
what if it's like
an hour and 40 minutes later, and that's gonna do it for the episode.
Slumdog, no.
Slumdog. The cult classic.
That's so good. But yeah, this game, I mean, to Teo's point though, this game is a cult classic and has a very, very passionate fan base. It also, there was a bunch of hiccups for both games that almost makes it seem like a miracle that they came out in the first place. I think one thing that I think it was Teo said in our text thread after watching the doc was like, it feels like a miracle that any game ever gets made. And I couldn't agree more about that. Were you gonna say something, Teo?
It's like if you're like building a truck and you're like, at any point you're like, I don't know if this truck is gonna run.
Yes, truly. So when it comes to this game at all, just the table setting, or is there any other important bullet points that either of you would like to include? Like the example Teo had just given about it being a cult classic. Anything I'm missing that we should just pepper in here?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll say that this gets into my justice for Zach McClendon. That Double Fine being started with Tim coming straight from narrative adventure games.
Yes.
I think like this kind of gets into like what is a video game kind of like, or what is the purpose of a video game?
Yeah.
Is it about the gameplay or is it about the story? And I think like Psychonauts has a really fun story, character settings. All the narrative stuff is really good. The gameplay itself is, I guess it's not bad. It's like fine.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that he came from like adventure games.
Yeah.
And yet hasn't, I guess he's made adventure games since with Double Fine, but mostly hasn't, but clearly influenced by that kind of game making.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan, you've played like every game he's ever made, essentially. Is this like a similar thought that you've had at all? Because I felt like I could totally see his strengths translate, as a narrative designer and as a dialogue writer and a world creator. But I would agree with Teo about just it coming over. How do you feel? Do you feel that you see that translation for him?
Yeah, for sure. To me, like, I think this is an example of like the charm and charisma sliders being up to 100.
Yeah.
And for me, that covers a lot of things.
Yes.
Like it's in my top 10, not for like, oh my God, the replay. Like to me, this idea, it's such like a big swing. And
yes.
I think the amount of charm that it has is like what to me makes it special.
Big time. And that I think is like so apparent, even for me, like from the title screen. they just take a lot of chances, and the style and the tone is very specific. And I think even though, yeah, it's kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon in a way, like kids adventure sort of, I think it's really strong. And just the way that they like to explore stuff in this game specifically. Well, why don't we go ahead and just this feels like a really great unintended segue into just our thoughts and feelings on the game. Ryan, as a longtime player of this game, when you think of Psychonauts, what do you think of first? Is it the examples you were kind of just giving?
I think like what I remember, the experience I remember having is like how much fun and anticipation the premise gives you when you're first starting out. Like it's kind of weird to talk about now, having we watched the documentary, some of us played the second one and then the first one. But like coming for me as someone who played sort of platformer collectathon games, and like the premise that the characters that you're interacting with in the world, you're going to go inside their heads as a level. Like I remember each time, like before going into a level, being so excited at like what it could and would be. I don't know if that was answering your question.
No, that absolutely answered my question. I think that was like one of the most exciting parts for me. I was really thankful that I don't think I had anything in this game spoiled for me, which is great. And I think, I mean, I would say like the overall story, I would have been like, that would have been fine if that was spoiled, but like the specific levels, like I didn't know about this legendary milkman conspiracy level.
Oh,
But as
fun.
soon as I was in it, I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. This is so cool. Teo, do you have a particular one of these worlds that you ended up enjoying the most, or like thought was the best?
The longfish level,
Oh
where
my
you just get to
gosh,
be
yes.
like a Godzilla, basically. Like it's kind of like kaiju spoof.
Yes.
Which is a lot of fun. I think like, yeah, the worlds that the brain levels that they build are really clever and fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It's funny.
Go ahead, Ryan.
To your point of what you're saying about the overall story is like kind of the reason I like Psychonauts 2 less, because like to me the plot of the whole story happened a lot outside of the brains, and to me I'm just like,
Yeah.
give me like the anthology series. I want a contained story in each brain. It's not super important to me like the overarching narrative.
Yeah.
In a way I feel like it kind of hurt the experience for me in the second game.
Oh, interesting.
Good
That's
point.
funny to hear.
Yeah. They did more open world stuff, and it's like, just put me in a brain.
Exactly.
Yeah. Man, I was just like really charmed by just so many of these worlds, which it actually, I'll say, I also couldn't agree more. I think I'm repeating myself as well, but like the story and the characters and the charm, the humor, even like the aesthetics, I really like. But when it comes to that stuff, it took a while for me to feel like the game had like any momentum. Again, being my first time playing it, it took just the speed, or I guess like the pace at which they dole out the different psychic abilities, which some I really loved, some I didn't use as much. I thought starts really slow, so I honestly wasn't even, and it could have been that I wasn't paying attention while I was playing it very well. I kept forgetting like what I was even doing. I forgot that Raz had escaped from the circus at the beginning of the game until I got to the very end of the game and was like, oh, this is why it's a meat circus, and this is why he's so good at like platforming and stuff. But I feel like there are examples throughout this game of just like little design choices here and there that slowed me down from enjoying those parts that we're all, I think, raving about. Some of that's the pace. I don't know. Teo, do you have anything to say about that?
This it really gets again into like, what is a video game?
We've gotten existential, folks.
Like, okay, like what is like the best form for Psychonauts to like what medium would it
Yes.
best exist in?
Yes.
And because like the brains are really fun, but when like and this is like getting into like the game writing and narrative design of it, where I'm like, well, I don't want to do like the collect the three things in order to advance kind of thing. I'm just like, let me just like have more forward momentum with the brain stuff. But like as a video game, you need that. Like
Yeah.
you need to like pad out what is like a relatively short like narrative, but pad it out with like the collect 3 things,
Totally.
unlock the 3 levers. Um and that is like well, like when I played Psychonauts 2, I went into the settings and I put all the combat stuff on like easiest mode possible.
Yeah.
Not because I found it hard. I was just like, I don't care about
Yeah.
this. And that's why I think there should be justice for Zach. Because I think that's the entire like tension and conflict that happened in the documentary, is that he's like, the combat, if we're gonna have combat in the game, it should be like fun and interesting. But everyone else who works at Double Fine is like, this game is about narrative, and that's totally fine. But like for me playing the game, I'm like, yeah, if you're gonna have this, like, you might as well just make like an adventure game, you know, like, and or just have no combat whatsoever. I don't know, like it's like you have it and it's just kind of there to like checklist of a video game. It just it's kind of uninteresting. I think that's why like you like, I'm not saying Zach was right or that's how the game should be, but like I think he was like, if there's combat in this, you need to make it like really good and interesting. And I don't think the combat is really good and interesting in Psychonauts. I think it's just kind of like very like rote and boring. And I'm like, I think like you could even just potentially get rid of it somehow, you know?
Right. I think that's very fair. Like in retrospect, it's kind of funny to look at collectathon style games because now there's so many ways that a game can hold your attention for a long amount of time. And it feels like this era of the 90s or early 2000s of collectathon things is like, if you buy a $60 game, this is a way to squeeze more time. Like it is kind of like busy work.
Yeah.
Stuff that is exactly as you're saying, padding out the game. But in a way, like I think back on like playing Pokemon growing up and like the grinding that a lot of people complain about that series. Like to me, I was like, what else am I doing? Like I'm in the car.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think there's an element to me that at that time I was like, oh, this doesn't bother me as much as I think probably the experience of playing it now, you know, has.
Right. It's just like the point of Pokemon was to like grind and like build your Pokemon and like level them up. And like, so like that process and loop is like the purpose of the game. Whereas like doing the combat stuff in Psychonauts is just a means to now like getting to the next cutscene because that's like the most fun. That is like the most interesting stuff.
Sure.
So like that's where it feels like I'm just like doing chores in order to get to like the next narrative beat.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like I feel like an unfair comparison is the Last of Us 1 and 2. Because those games are like really fun, really narrative heavy. Like it's basically a movie, but the actual combat is like really dynamic and interesting and fun. And like really intense, and like there's like lots of like choices you can make as a player, and it's obviously not a fair comparison of very wildly different games. But that is like a narrative heavy game where they did put like so much time and effort and design into the combat itself to make you like enjoy the game leading up to each cutscene.
Yeah,
totally,
big time. I felt like got a little later in the game to a few moments when it came to the gameplay that I realized I wasn't having as good of a time with that aspect that I thought I was. And for the most part, because I was enjoying like the cutscenes, the jokes, like every little aspect, and I'll say sometimes just bouncing around on the levitation ball. I love doing that.
Yeah.
I found that I was like sort of on autopilot where I was like mastering the skills to like do it as fast as I could. Like in those gameplay moments, like when it came to the I love even the concepts of like just about every one of these brain levels. I love where they went with it. Like, for example, and the variety is great. Like the Waterloo level where you're like helping the Napoleon guy. I forget his name. The guy who thinks he's Napoleon because he's like his ancestor or something.
Yeah.
You're like playing the little like Settlers of Catan, basically chess game. I mean, it's actually a lot more simple than that, but I like found myself, because sometimes in games I'll like enjoy something and I'll take my time. With this, I was like, nope, let's use levitate, let's use a telekinesis. We're throwing those pieces across the map to kill the other guys. Let's like just smash through it. So there were just so much gameplay that I found I was just zipping through as quick as I could in the second half of the game. The first half I was like still getting to know it, but that's how I was kind of feeling. The one thing I did want to say, like, I love to talk about how we specifically play games and just like habits we adopt games in general.
Yeah.
I mentioned the levitation power, which is like maybe the second or first one you get. I almost, unless like it was in a corridor that was really small or like a place that didn't have a high ceiling, I was always on that thing, just like bouncing around. Did you guys play like this too? Because I couldn't stop myself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if it felt psycho to walk around after you get that ability,
Yes.
like it's like, what am I doing? This is fun.
Yeah, if I could go through life just like rolling on an invisible ball, I'd be doing that all day.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. I thought that, while a lot of the gameplay I have criticism for, that particular ability, and I do like the abilities overall, even though I really just used a few of them unless I had to use one. I love that one, and it felt like they had at least that ability. They had taken the time to really work on like how it actually functions and the physics of it, because I kind of liked how if you were on a slope, you would slide down a little bit, but you could also use that to your advantage of like making things like a half pipe. Like I think you brought up Tony Hawk earlier, Teo, and I was thinking about Tony Hawk playing this game a little bit.
Yeah.
But
that's probably why the game took like 5 years and the other game took 7 years. It's just like they clearly like have attention to detail, and like that's the stuff where I'm like, how does any game get made? We have to create everything from scratch and like
especially
test all the physics. Yeah.
Yeah, this game has like something like 8 or 9 psychic abilities that you get, which in a vacuum, I do think they are all unique and interesting in their own ways. But when you have a whole arsenal of abilities and 3 like buttons to map them to, it felt like I was playing one of my favorite games of all time, Link's Awakening, where I was swapping out shit all the time. Did you guys experience this too?
Yeah, I feel like it's funny. I feel like that is generally a criticism of the game. Is like, oh my god, I have to keep navigating to the menu like while I'm interfacing with an enemy to like switch to the which is totally, I think fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost hard to access, like, because to me at the time it's not like there was this Red Dead Redemption 2 wheel that pops up, pick the gun, just keep going. Like obviously that's an improvement. There's no argument against that.
Yeah, they didn't have that. They didn't discover the wheel until like like 2013 or something.
Exactly.
Gosh. There are like I have this this sick disease where if I have an old game on, like, if I'm going to play a game and I have a copy of it, like this one that I bought for just like in a fleeting moment on eBay 3 years ago, I have to play it on the retro hardware. So I did play this, like I said, on my PS2 on a CRT TV. So I was really recreating the 2005 of it all. That's great in some ways. Like it is really cozy to just like snuggle up 3 feet from this TV over here that you guys can't see and hear the ringing of the screen as it plays. But there's also drawbacks of like sitting in the loading screens forever, of just like these birds like flapping around in whatever area I'm entering. How did you guys play this time around? Was it on Game Pass?
Yeah, I did Game Pass PC.
I had it on Steam. I think I had bought it on sale at some point. Yeah.
Do they have?
You know what I miss is when you play a game, like when you used to have those CRTVs. Wait, what is it?
CRT TV.
CRT TVs.
Yeah.
Was when you like put your hand on it and you feel the fuzz.
Fuzz.
I miss that feeling, that static fuzz feeling.
Hey, Teo, I'll let you relive that fantasy tomorrow, buddy.
I haven't felt that in so long.
We'll be playing Smash 64 on that thing. It's gonna be a hot TV. But I don't even know. Well, I was just talking about some drawbacks of playing it in the mode I played on, which was really a tangent. When it comes to the abilities, I know we're kind of bouncing around, but that's totally fine. Did you two have abilities you would lean on often? Did you have like when I think of I played Ocarina of Time a million times in my life, like 20 times probably. I know what my like C button layout is for my items. How
Oh,
did you
yeah.
guys like to arrange your button mapping for the 3 abilities? Do you know? Because I know mine.
I honestly don't know mine for Psychonauts, but
I know I always had the ball. Like I don't remember exactly. How did you map it?
I would usually almost always have the levitation
Right.
one, which if I was in a groove, I would map it to R1 on the PS2 controller. I would generally either have like the shooting one on one of the other ones, and then like a defensive psychic ability, whether it was the shield or the invisibility, something like that. Do you know
Right.
what you did?
I was levitation ball pretty much all the time. It's a shame how I think the best one in terms of what Psychonauts does well is like the clairvoyance, because that
Oh,
is
yes.
literally at any moment you can get a joke. Like it's not good for the gameplay,
Yeah.
but like the fact that to me what Psychonauts is good at was any Tim Schafer game is good at. Like in Grim Fandango, I am gonna go through all the dialogue trees
Yes.
because each thing I'm gonna discover is funny and makes the game worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And clairvoyance to me is like an ability that understands that the game is like, this is the experience that is good. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can go back to any level, see that a squirrel sees you a certain way. I'm like, that is like the juice to me.
Yes.
But gameplay wise, it's obviously not great for combat.
no, but that is incredible. That is like, wow. That's like everything is a joke. Like how much dialogue is in here
right.
that like most people do not experience at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. You were talking earlier, I believe it was Teo, just about like, we were talking for a while about the strengths that Tim Schafer brought over from his adventure game past. This game, well, Grim Fandango basically was just like a death sentence to many point and click adventures at the time. The genre was really not dying out, but it was a lot less lucrative than it was before. So I think he was really focused on making this another game, but it's just really hard to ignore the strengths, like how that clairvoyance ability, it wouldn't be appropriate for Guybrush, but if this was a point and click adventure style game, you could still get this same amount of like joy and stuff out of it, which sadly, I think that's one of the ones I ended up using the least, unless I would mostly use that when I was like stuck and I was like, is clairvoyance going to help me here? And sometimes it would. But I kind of missed out on a lot of those jokes, or bringing an item and showing it to someone and seeing what they say.
I mean, it also doesn't the game doesn't set you up to like use it a lot. And there's no real incentive to go back to a level you've already done and see like, oh, how would someone see me? You get the ability like essentially 80% of the way through the game. So it's not absurd to, I think, never really use it.
Totally.
Wait, this brings up like a weird psychology thing. If you're playing Ocarina of Time,
yes,
and you need to equip the bow, where are we putting it?
I was always a left C button.
I was left
C
too.
Left C.
Really?
Wow. Okay.
I feel like a lot of people go. So of course it was, if I'm Adult Link, it's bow, left C, hook shot, down C, and then right was always wild card. It was either like the Ocarina or bombs or the Megaton hammer. But I just like the hook shot being down the middle for some reason.
Interesting.
I think I would do like the Megaton hammer would swap with bow. I like need my like main on left, C left.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just Ryan is just like deep in thought. I think he's exploring his own mind in this exact moment.
I'm like, I think I must have had the Ocarina like clogging up my thing most of the game.
Yeah.
Like I really had it kind of in the mix. It was definitely bow, Ocarina, and like it feels like Megaton hammer would have.
Wait, you might be right. I think Ocarina might have been kind of like a mainstay, just because you like are constantly using it to like teleport.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I do. I like to think about little details like that and habits that like we all might be doing in games, even if we're doing them differently, but we don't ever talk about. That's just it's such a silly detail. But I when I can think of an example that makes sense like this, because we map our abilities in this game like that game. I think about it a lot.
Like, do you guys like? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go.
Do you explore like Like, do you like? I guess like Psychonauts, we were maybe playing for like a podcast, or you like played it before or
Yes.
something. But like, if it was like brand new, it was like a brand new game, you like really enjoying it. Would you like go talk to every single person, or
I
do you go to the objective?
To me, it's changed with age. Like I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
I think in the glory days of gaming, that is something I would be doing a lot more frequently.
So
Interesting.
more just straight to the objective, main objective.
Now I think I just I get, it's hard for me to get excited even for like a big kind of AAA game, like anything like Starfield. I'm like, this is too big for me. I need like a Outer
Yeah.
Wilds kind of experience. It's like, this is 15 hours. You play it once, it'll change your
Yes.
life kind of
It's
thing.
pretty linear. Um, I think that it's hard to say now, Teo, because so many games I play, like 2/3 of the games I play, and at this point I finished 28 games this year, which is psychotic. Appropriately using that word a lot on this episode. And I would be willing to bet if I looked at them that like probably 18 of them are for podcasts, if not more. So unfortunately, it's hard for me to remember what I would have done. But what I will say is that when I finished this game, I was thinking like I would like to go back and like talk to more people or poke around more, or like, even though I thought that the collecting, I realized felt very pointless to me, even though like a lot of it does add up towards your abilities over
Mhm.
time. I was like, I want to go, I never went back to that level after I got the cobweb duster, or I never did this, or like some of these kids' brains that I'm getting, I don't even know who that kid is. Like, I think I probably would have, especially because of the strengths that I think we're all feeling this game has. Because of that, I would have enjoyed it even more. I just didn't do it. Do you do that ever, Teo? Did you do it in this game?
No, at the moment I have to collect like you have there's like more than like 2 or 3 things I have to collect. I'm like I've completely forgotten about them. Like, and there are so many of the little what are they
Figments.
called? Figments. There's
Yes.
so many, and it's like you have to tell me like I don't need to get all of them, or like
Yeah.
this is not a thing you need to collect 100% of. You know, it kind of is, right? Like that's part of they
They do add
track
up.
all of them, right? Or
They You don't have to collect all of them, but they do add up towards your Psychonaut ranking.
so they okay, so you don't need to collect all of them, but you do need to collect some of them for to level up, basically.
Yeah, which thankfully, I mean, when it comes to the collectibles in this game, I think they're hit or miss for me. On one hand, it's like thinking of the Figments specifically, so many of them are just going to be in the level and they're on your path wherever you are. They're in every little, like, for example, the Waterloo level. You're going to go to this like tower at a certain point. Guess what? There's Figments in the tower. Like, you can though go out of your way if you want extras. I do get a little dopamine effect when I like touch one and you hear the little like jingle. But at a certain point in the game, I was like, why do I go out of my way for these things? But I still, if I saw one, I was like, I want to try to get that. Kind of.
Totally. I think like when used well, it's like coins in Mario, where it's like this
Yeah.
should just be like it's little dopamine hits, it's kind of on your
Right.
way. And when it's done poorly, it's like, why is it fucking behind this back porch in the Waterloo
Right.
level? Like this is
Yeah. Totally.
that's where the line I feel like I draw.
Yeah. I think that like if this is it's a really interesting specific thing we're talking about in games, and like I think 3D platformers especially, but yeah, something just like hidden behind a thing I don't get as much enjoyment out of. But if it's like, oh, I didn't even think to go up there, I would try that. It doesn't solve it for me, but it's more appealing.
Sure.
Did you guys when it came to, since we're talking about in level stuff, did you try to like what was it, mental baggage that you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
did you try to get the tags and save those? Did you find the vaults with the real dark memory stuff in it?
To me, the vaults is like the way to do a collectible, because
Yeah.
that is it's a lore drop. It's instantly rewarding.
Mhm.
There was like a fun like incentive to do it. I think that's a great collectible. The mental or the baggage, especially for this playthrough, I didn't. I think the first time I did some, but not all.
Yeah.
But the vaults I think are really good.
Yeah, that's the juice, that's
Exactly.
and that's also the thing where I'm like, well, just let me get. Can I skip can I just see it?
Yeah.
Can I just see it? Do I have to collect the thing? Just like, because like you're blocking the game behind, you're gating it behind like this collectible thing where I'm like, I don't want to do that, but I do want.
Oh, interesting. So you just want the thing. You don't want to go and like hit it and like have to figure it out.
Oh wait, were they puzzles?
The
I'm like
vault
forgetting.
the vault you just smack and then it pops out and it shows you like a little kaleidoscope.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Those like little green dog looking vaults that are like
Yes,
bounce
you're
like
right.
I guess like just running around the level.
Yes, you're right. I forgot. I thought those. I was confusing that with the mental baggage or whatever, where you have to like
Yeah.
find the corresponding tag.
No,
Yes.
that is worse. I think the vault I think is such good storytelling, and the cave does it as well because like it is you can recontextualize a whole level or a whole character by opening
Yeah,
one, and I think that's
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of this is just stemming from the fact of being older and more like valuable of my time. Because I remember being like back in the day when you're like buying a video game, you like look up like how long of a game is it? It's got to be
Yeah.
100 hours. I got to get my money's worth. Like I got to
Right.
I gotta squeeze every hour out of this game. So it's like adding all the little bits of crap and it's
Yes.
just to pad out how long a game is.
Yeah.
Totally.
You both have. I know Ryan's. You played through all of Psychonauts 2, Ryan, and then Teo, you played some of.
I played through like probably half of Psychonauts 2.
Okay, gotcha. Is this like there's so much that like we've been talking about, like little criticism that I will have in this game or things I think could have been better. I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but for the sequel, do they improve some of these things? Do they have like similar issues or similar strengths? I'm kind of curious of your opinions. I'm going to play it regardless, and I think next year for a podcast episode, so expect me to reach out to you guys. But I'm just kind of curious at this point.
In my perspective is that all the feedback that they've gotten and the criticisms that you guys have had, they've improved gameplay things immensely. Cool. But I think the thing I like that is worse is each brain to me feels not as fun. I don't know if that's by nature of like the collective story or the grand story that they're going for, or like I understand why in the second one they're not like we're gonna do like an insane asylum and have 4 levels of brains of that nature.
Yes,
but to me I'm like these are way more interesting, and I care about the people in a way that I'm like I don't really care about this person I only have heard tell of that I'm jumping into their brain now.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it feels like they did try to make it like other games, you know, like we gotta have a Batman Arkham Asylum style like combat or something, like where we like all the enemies have like their weaknesses and stuff. And then like the shininess of it, like the new like because I think you use like Unreal and kind of games have like this like vibe to them with Unreal where it just like doesn't fit well with like the kind of gross cartooniness of it.
Interesting.
It's a really good point. It's like the difference between old King of the Hill and new King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's kind of funnier when Bobby looks weird.
Yeah, it like looks a little jank, you know?
You're right.
Yeah. Especially when you like that jank and more polish, like throws you off for some reason or doesn't take you out of it, but it's like give me back my dirty. I want my dirty.
A little bit.
Scuff them up.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, after you.
I was just because it feels specific to comedy too. Like The Simpsons is a similar thing of just like, yeah, when you're going for funny, like I don't think it needs to look like really good.
Yes, definitely. You get away with a lot more.
Right.
It rings true for trust me, I'm a regular white guy in comedy, and my number goes way up because I'm a little funny rather than not being. But you were talking about the visuals a little bit. We've touched on it slightly. But what do you guys think about the visuals of this game that we played? I thought it, like I said, it really helped that I'm playing on a CRT TV because this game was made in that era of television. So like I find that many old games look a lot better because it muddies them up and you don't see the like not poor design, but like some of the awkward design of like 3D models and such. Ryan, you've been playing this game since 2012. What do you think about the visual design? Is there any takeaways that you had?
I said visually, I'm like Team Wind Waker, where I'm like, take a swing, man. Like,
Yeah.
I want an art style, and I think this is that. It's aggressively. I think you would show not 100 people, and 99 would probably be like, this is. I don't like looking at this. But it's really charming to me. I like it.
Yeah. Teo, any
Yeah.
thoughts from you?
I thought it was interesting watching Psych Odyssey, the
Yes.
42-part series documentary on YouTube. When they brought that one guy back, I forget his name, but he was like the character designer.
Yes. Scott Campbell.
Yes,
Yes.
and he just like draws like that, like
yeah,
like it's like it seems like it's not. He didn't like go too hard drawing these characters outside of his like art style.
yeah.
It's kind of like Akira Toriyama. Like he's just like this is my style. I just draw Dragon Ball characters no matter what.
Now that you say that, I do want to see this game, but they're all Akira Toriyama design.
That'd be sick. I would love that.
I think I cut you off there. Were you finishing a thought?
No, I just like. I think I am one of the people. I'm like, I'm glad they took a swing. The characters, I'm like, they all do make me feel uneasy.
They are like, there's some like uneasiness. There's some like grossness, not just in the design, but like some of the things that happen. There's a point later in the game. Well, first of all, there's this Dr. Loboto guy who very, very clever name. He performs lobotomies on like every character in the game pretty much. He takes their brain out of their head, which is already like, ooh, that's creepy and gross. And it's impossible not to look at this guy for me and think of one of the antagonists in Nightmare Before Christmas, the guy who like makes Sally. It's the same guy.
It's the exact. I watched Nightmare Before Christmas this year. I'm like, this is the same exact guy. It's crazy.
Yes. I was kind of talking about that like Psychonauts stew earlier of like aesthetics and properties, and that's one of those things. But I've been belaboring my point. All that to say is like there's a lot of like gross stuff of like I think Raz sneezes out his brain at one point. And like for some reason that image was like, oh, it made me uncomfortable because I was like just imagining that happening to me, which is impossible, but I still didn't like it.
Pausing the game. This can't happen to me, right?
Yeah. Is this in my future? Oh no, I gotta sneeze. Yeah, but I really love the I mean, I like the design of the characters. I'm also on Team Big Swing, of course. Love that. And the world designs too, I really liked. We talked about the variety of like of the worlds, I think more in like the gameplay format so far, which I do really enjoy that they are all there's like a different goal in each world. Some I like better than others and think they're executed better. But even like the design, like I mean, I've talked about the Milkman Conspiracy one already, but like I love that one. And there's few things in like games I feel like that are more fun than like gravity physics when games mess with them.
Right.
Yeah, but that's also the level where I got like by the time I was really rolling with this game, I would sit down and basically play a level in like an hour and a half and like beat the whole thing. That one I had to take like a break on and like come back the next day because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing or where to go, but I think it's one of those levels and parts of the game that the strengths of it were so good in my eyes that I like really powered through and just figured it out. I did a little good. I looked a couple things up in this game, including one part at the end I was very frustrated by. You talked about Lungfishopolis, Ryan. Oh, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was like, that level does not need to make most houses something you can go into. I think that does a disservice to it because pretty quickly I'm like, oh, I can go into every house. I guess I have to and open the fridge and something maybe that I need is in there. Which I think slows it down a little bit.
I need to break everyone's planters and everyone's chairs to see if there's any like arrowheads in them.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a good point though. I was also like it almost like it poisoned my brain and I had to go in every house and be like, oh, but did I go into the first one? Like that sort of disease?
Right.
Yeah. But I feel like I had something
you
I
were
was gonna
asking
ask.
about Lungfishopolis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You brought that up earlier. Did you get a chance to talk about that level in the detail that you wanted?
I think the voice acting of the little fish in this level is so funny.
Very
The
Monsters Inc. I
it's
felt.
really funny.
Yes. Again, throw that in the stew.
Like stomping around, and there'll be one fish who'll be like, "My cheese shop," when a house gets destroyed.
Yes.
I think that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this game does like deserve a lot of credit for like actually being like funny.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's like not many games that can do that or
Totally.
have done that.
Yeah. Really, really well done. I'm like impressed too that they were able to make so much of this work in like a video game sense. Despite the flaws we've been bringing up, like, yeah, just these concepts are wild, but implemented, some stronger than others. But gosh, yeah, I do love running around Lungfishopolis and being just a menace to them. I was kind of confused though when I was playing it, because at first everyone's really scared of you, but there's like a brigade of like defectors. I don't remember what they're called, but you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the like rebel fish.
Yes, who like really like you and they're on your side. Big time. Teo, did you have a level that you wanted to shout out, or like a moment in the game that was that stands out to you?
I also really like Lungfishopolis.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like also like being able to work like be able to build like have references in a video game that aren't like weird or cringe or like
Right.
Yes.
or and to like go full like it's not just like a line of dialogue that's a reference. It's like they built the entire level around it, which is like, and I mean they did that for All the Brain, which is like
Yeah.
really really quite impressive.
Totally. Big time. That I'm realizing Lungfishopolis, and I'm sorry, this is a tangent. I don't remember if you have levitation yet, because I really could have used it climbing some of those tall buildings. And that, I think so many of these levels I keep talking about like the positives and the negatives. There's something that happens throughout this game where like while you're doing the platforming, some little enemy is just like ruining your day. Like whether it's the airplanes that are like shooting you as you're trying to climb the buildings in Lungfishopolis, but the ones that got me the most were in the Waterloo level. There were like those like snail tanks. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Those it was one of those moments where I was like, I think my frustration with these things is justified, but I did realize I was being an idiot and didn't even think about how to get rid of them. No matter where you're at in the level, if these fuckers can see you, they will like shoot missiles or something at you. But if you can, I think like hit them once, they go in their shell, and then you have to basically light them on fire because they have like a candle wick sticking out of them. I thought they were indestructible, so I was running around that level like run, shield, run, shield, hide behind a thing. I felt like there was many examples of that in this game where I was like, I can't tell if this was me not considering my options, because that's perfectly possible, or if the game doesn't telegraph certain things to you very well. I don't know if you experience this at all.
It's definitely that.
Okay.
You're not crazy. Like it just does not give you the opportunities to like, and that is in the second one something like we have to make enemies specifically to like make you think I need to be using this power up, because why in the hell would you think to shoot them and then set them on fire?
Yeah, they didn't discover the like thing where your player character is like, what if I try lighting them on fire until like 2017?
Yeah, shortly after the wheel.
Yes, yeah. That was the next great innovation of games for sure.
For some reason, this is so stupid because the level's set up to like avoid it, but I would just in the Black Velvetopia keep getting hit by that fucking bull.
Yep.
I was just constantly like, it clearly wants you to go around, but I'm like, I can fucking jump over it. I'll be fine. And I always got hit.
Dude, so that's something that in this game, like, there's a similar complaint I have as you're climbing the like asylum, or not climbing it, as you're like getting into it, is that if I'm like above the bull, like clearly, don't drag me back in the level. Like if I get hit, hey, I'll take my punishment. That's fine. But when I'm using the like levitation ball and I'm like a whole bull above him.
Yes.
I'm like, don't drag me. And that's another one of those levels that I think I enjoyed the theming and the humor and the like aesthetic of it so much that I really just like powered through and did it. I was gonna say that too, and this is just a design. This is like a design thing. Again, a game from 2005. Like, it's not gonna be perfect, but I noticed that when you're in the asylum courtyard, you know I don't remember the theater director's name or the lady Gloria. She's got like the play going on in her head. To get to her, you just need to like smash a pile of chairs that are like blocking a walkway. But once I had already gotten over to her, I was like, oh, I can just use levitation to jump over this stupid fence that I don't need to do. And it was sort of a classic like invisible wall part of a game where I'm like, just let me get up there. Like, I'm over it.
Right.
Yeah, not to I won't belabor that point too much, but I was like, okay, just go around every time.
The very first level too, or the very first brain
Coach?
is also coaches. Yeah, it's like because just forget like this game's pretty dark too. It's like
right.
It is Saturday morning cartoon. I guess in the same way that like Ren and Stimpy is also kind of like fucked up. Like you forget that like they talk about like suicide, war, PTSD. Like,
right.
It's like gets pretty dark pretty fast.
I know it's like it's definitely like a risk to be like this is aimed at light entertainment and you're really touching on some topics that like all things said and done I don't think it like is ever egregiously like yikes, but it is like it really hangs on a knife's edge.
Right, but it's like every character's backstory, I guess, which they mostly do through the little like kaleidoscope things. It's just like, yeah, this character is traumatized by like hearing a bunch of like children die.
that one specifically. So when you guys played it, did you? Because my first playthrough, I never found that room. Like,
whose was that? I may have missed this.
This is you got to say it.
No, I'll tell you.
I was going to say like I didn't find it. I watched a recap on YouTube, but
huge.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I just never hit that part of the level. It's Mia, the levitation ball, like the party. So it's just like really fun level with all this bouncing around. And there's one tucked away corner where if you go in, she's like, dude, hey, don't go in there. And you got to watch it on YouTube because it is like, you get the lore drop. In addition to the lore drop, there's a toy chest that if you jump in, it's like all of her nightmares.
Oh no.
Like fenced off so they can't get in. It's like, wow, crazy.
Dang. That like makes, I think I found most of the vaults, but that like really has an impact on that level, I think. And it's like, oh, this is why she's such a party animal. She's like hiding. I mean, they're all like hiding from their trauma in a certain way, and that's the way she does it.
And that doesn't really like come back, right? It's not like it's like used for anything. It's just like, oh, by the way, this character fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, and go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's not effective in the sense that I didn't know it existed when I played it, but I think it's such a good use of, like Teo, you were saying, like, does this need to be a game? That's a really successful use of it, in my opinion, of like hiding this really like tiny thing that most players might miss, but really contextualize and makes that level like, that's one of my favorite levels because of that.
Yeah, because it does really contextualize everything, which is really cool. And it's like, so if you dive deep into it, which is like, that is like kind of the purpose of the game, is like to put things in for you to discover that you might not.
Right.
Yeah, big time. And, you know, if there was stuff that they are like, we can't let you play this game without seeing it, they're going to show you a cutscene or like fix your camera on a character, like at any time. They can totally do that.
Right.
Folks, I mean, we've been talking about this game for a while. I feel like I've gotten to, there's probably more that I'm not remembering now that will come up later. Do you two have anything else you want to touch on when it comes to this game, whether it's a whole topic or like a level or a character, anything?
Something that did come to mind is it's crazy how horny the little car that drives you to the layers is. It's
my gosh, yes.
It's like a very happy birthday, Mr. President voice.
Where would you like to go, Agent Kreller?
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, let's talk about the doc, but that's a 40.
We can
That's a
talk
whole.
about the doc.
What do you think? Would you like to work at Double Fine after watching that doc?
My answer 100% is yes. I would totally do it, and I would ruin, even if it like ruined my life. That's not true, but I would genuinely love to do it, especially if like, I mean, it seems like there's not a lot of room for, and I know I'm not being asked this question and how I would work there, but like there's probably not a lot of room outside of Tim for like narrative design. I mean, maybe there is more than we see in the doc, but I would, despite their history of like just tumultuous development cycles. What about you, Ryan?
I think in watching it, I'm like, oh, I desperately want to be Tim. And I
Yeah.
think my sense is like, even in the doc, there's some people, obviously their skill sets are in like designer level stuff, but clearly have a little bit of that. And
Yes.
like when they get there, are probably quickly disenfranchised from the idea and being like, actually, this is going to be pretty different.
Totally.
Yeah, it is just like it. It does feel like a one man shop, you know. Like it's
Right.
all kind of stemming down from Tim, which again, justice for Zach. Like it's a bum deal to be like I'm the director of this game, but clearly I'm not. There's
Totally.
the guy above me who like is the person really driving it. So
Right.
it is just interesting because like obviously it's like one person. There's and you know what? Like watching that entire documentary, there almost was like, you know, you create a creative company like that you have like other people who are like should be at Tim's level in terms of like having as much creative input and like trust, I guess, or like clout. He's only one person, but there was no person that even is close to Tim's level
Right.
in terms of like being able to direct a game there, which
Yeah.
like that's crazy.
Yeah. I wonder what, I mean, I'm sure we could speculate and maybe even guess correctly why that is, but maybe is there just not an opportunity for other people to do that there and to flourish in like, I mean, other roles, like
Yeah,
they've got like Greg Rice was their producer who's in that doc a
right,
bunch. It's like he seems amazing at his job. Like the designers, the artists, they all seem great, but yeah, no one that's quite has like the say and leeway that he does. I mean, of
yeah,
course he started the company, but like
right,
no one is, it seems like, yeah, that hasn't been like fostered, but
right.
I could be totally wrong.
I mean, it probably seems like the smaller games that they've made, like
Yes.
Tim's like someone else is really doing that, and I'm maybe coming in at the last second. But for like their main game that they're making, it is just like it's just Tim. Everyone has to wait for Tim to like go into his room and like write a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
and that becomes like stuff to make. Um, but yeah, it's like it's like if Pixar was only having like one director. Like
Right.
Pixar has like a bench of people who like all make movies, and there's not like one person.
But it's interesting to that point. Like, I feel like for the first couple, there were like maybe 4 people that were kind of given the director reins. And like,
Mhm.
Double Fine is a Tim Schafer company. Like, if you were to
Right.
get a Double Fine game and it didn't have the tone that all the other ones were, like, that's what I think everyone wants. Everyone does want a Tim's voice game.
Hmm.
So it becomes tough when I guess there are some Amnesia Fortnites that tonally have it. But it's tough because I think what the audience wants is Tim Schafer.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And there are things that are like double fine like in the Amnesia games especially. But there's like a vibe and aesthetic, but yeah, you don't have like the writing, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a true double fine game.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, we've Teo's on the campaign trail, of course, Justice for Zach. But I was thinking about him a little more in the rewatch because when you know what's coming for him later down the road, it's hard not to like, as I'm rewatching it, like look for the clues or like look for where there's stuff that I think I noticed when I first watched, but wasn't didn't know it was going to lead into him being fired. Um, and there's stuff that like he's so good at, and then there's things that like where you can tell he doesn't totally seem to gel with everybody there or know how to communicate what he needs to in a way that they can receive. But gosh, he's obviously a machine. I bet he is like having so much success wherever he is, but Double Fine just like doesn't operate that way, which on one hand I'm like, oh, it's Double Fine, like I love them now, like they should do what they're doing, but I'm like, I don't know, maybe there is more room for a Zach or there should be more room for a Zach. Was that kind of where you were sitting, Teo?
I mean, like he clearly didn't do well with like receiving feedback and like adjusting to like
definitely
working at a different company, because he came from like a much bigger like Ubisoft or something before. And so that it's like, you gotta like adjust and realize you're at a different company.
Totally.
Even he's like a guy who's like is probably right a lot, but has no room for like hearing other people's opinions. Because I think like watching him, it's just like he takes like an idea and he's like, this is how you make it into a game, and this is how you make it into the actual components for game development and turn it into a thing, and not just like endlessly talk about it and not do anything. Which is just like he's like a veteran in the industry. But yeah, it is hard to watch knowing what's gonna happen.
I remember feeling it leading up to that was just like, I mean, I was surprised when they have the episode where they're like, hey, he's no longer the lead designer on this project. You could feel, I mean, the tension, and of course they're what's their 2-player productions who made the doc. They know what they're doing, and they got to give you the clues leading up, but it was just so tense and uncomfortable leading up to that. And I think it was before COVID hits in the doc too, so they're still in person, which I think I'm so glad it wasn't over Zoom, because that would be so much more boring. I'm also like dialed into him, but also Ryan, who gets hired. I think he's like on the I don't know if he's a designer as well, but
he's like a designer, level designer at
I think so. But him and Zach had worked together before, but you can tell that like he's got similar bumps for himself at the company. And then I think it's like a week after Zach gets canned, Ryan comes back, and Ryan's gone like a week later. He's like, I resigned.
Right.
Which is just like, oh, it didn't work for him either.
I know the element of Ryan in that documentary kind of opens up a little bit of like, oh, I'm not seeing everything. Like I kind of get the vibe that like, you know what I mean? Because as an audience member, the Ryan and Zach thing is just like, oh, these guys are like not gelling. There's like some tension. But you don't hear a lot, unless I'm misremembering, of like the specifics of like their friction points, or at least Ryan's, you know?
It's from what I've seen so far, it ends up he doesn't express himself very much. And he might be about to express himself in the episodes I'm getting into, but it's more of like what you see in those meetings of like how he will respond to stuff, which sometimes watching a person like him, I'm like, is this just someone I am completely different than?
Sure.
Or am I reading this correctly? Which is just, I think, a person to person thing.
I had a very similar experience. It's like socially we're smart. We're picking up on the dynamics, but we're also not a party to like what, you know what I mean? Like we're voyeurs. We don't actually know what the room is like.
Yes.
But like with the context we have, it's very like readable.
Yeah, definitely. What were you going to say, Teo? Sorry.
No, just that. Yeah, it is, because it is. I just like, am so curious about like the behind the scenes of like what
big time
gets into the edit, what doesn't, what do they film, what do they don't. Because it is very open. It's definitely like way more access than most like reality shows.
Right.
But like, what is who gets final cut? You know,
I think
what gets to be shown.
They talk about it. I mean, like I went so crazy with this thing that I watched like MinMax, which is one of my favorite outlets. They also did like a like an industry roundtable to talk about Double Fine. That like I think Jason Schreier was on this. So there's like 5 journalists. Then he interviewed Tim Schafer about it. Then this is Ben Hansen I'm referring to. Then Ben Hansen interviewed the 2-player productions production team So like if you guys want more of that stuff, like, or just answers to like little questions like that, I think they talk about a lot of it, which,
Oh, wow.
but it's kind of where you're landing, which is we're obviously seeing like a documentary tailored to tell a story, and we're just not going to get everything
Sure.
intentional or not. It's kind of hard to say. They feel transparent, but like, how can you be like, I mean, I myself can't be fully transparent about stuff. So
right. I certainly don't mean to imply it's like this one-sided narrative. It's just like,
totally.
oh, you just don't know. Like
Yeah.
What I do know is Two Player Productions had to be psyched when their camera guy was like crushing it. You know what I mean? Like making a
Dude.
level. They're like, thank
Yes.
fucking God, something nice.
Yes. Like
Yeah.
when Asif got the Amnesia Fortnite like nods.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. I've watched, I told you too, I wanted to do this last time, but in watching the documentary, I was like, oh, I wish I would have stopped and watched the Amnesia Fortnite movie. And I'm doing that this time, which actually, it's a totally different Amnesia Fortnite than the one that they show in the doc.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but Asif does like his first game in one of them, and then he does a second one in the doc, I think. So he gets to do two of them. He gets picked twice for
first.
Amnesia
Yes,
Fortnite.
the first one is like the cooking one, the
Yes.
cooking for like the gods or whatever.
Yes.
Which was fun to play that because they make that into like one of the Psychonauts 2 levels.
Oh,
yeah.
And it's very like fun to play that after hearing all about it. What was this? The second one was like, did he do the slug game?
Yeah.
Yes,
The
Armored Slug
tower defense. Yes. That's fascinating. I'm like, what is that? What did he do? You know, I like obviously did a lot, but it's like, what do you actually do? Like,
Yeah,
right.
I think it was a lot of like concept stuff.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if you're on that team, you're slacking each other like, motherfucker, this guy just does not know. Like, we're doing all this work. This guy does not understand.
This is something that I think, I'm not sure if we talked about it, but something that the doc illuminated is a point you're getting to, I think that you're getting to, Ryan, which is just like, there's just so much that goes into making games. And if you're not familiar with the process, like you don't like seeing people in this doc being like, I want to do this. And the programmers are like, we can't, or like we can, or if you want to do that, we have to change this. It's just seeing those dynamics work was super interesting as well.
Totally. Yeah. It's because I guess I don't know like Tim's programming experience, but he's such an idea guy. And there seems like a constant point of conflict of like, this would be so sick. And then people being like, you're making me do 30 hours of work today.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
100%. And and there's so much of it that just gets like thrown away, which like, I would be, I would say like if I worked at a place like that, I'd be like, oh, I'd throw away my like, I'd have no ego coming in, like, yeah, criticize my work. But like if I grind it for like
of course
80-hour weeks for months, and then they're like, it's not good. Don't feel like I would lose my mind.
And you get to the end of it and it's all to the altar of Tim. Like, you know what I mean? Your work as a level designer is not going to be like, whoa, like, can you believe this level that, not to say that everyone needs to get credit for everything, but like it is in service of kind of Tim's ethos.
Yeah. It's he's the face of the company. And like, the like auteur theory about like having one person be the face of like a creative project is already like insane for film, but for video games it's like, my god.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. To the idea about like how painful it must be to throw stuff away, I just watched like the first round of level design in the doc where like the new designer James is a part of the team, and like they designed this whole level through like several conceptual phases over like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and then they just scrap the whole thing. And it is like, that's just got to be brutal, to your point, Teo. Yeah. Anything else that you guys want to say about like the doc? Otherwise, I'm going to lead us into like closing thoughts on Psychonauts 1, even though it's been like 20 minutes since we talked about it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just on our way out, like, Ryan, maybe I'll start with you since you have like the longest breadth of experience with the game. This is also a chance that if there's something you're like, oh, I wanted to talk about this, you can. But leaving this most recent time playing the game, what are your like closing thoughts on Psychonauts?
Totally. I can't defend a lot of gameplay stuff of Psychonauts. I fully agree with the criticisms of it. To me, the Psychonauts experience is similar to like Outer Wilds, a game that I have no intention of playing a bunch of times, but the first time playing it, I was like, oh my God, this is like such an experience that I've never had before. It's so charming. It's so unique. And like Teo said, it's like, how many video games can you count that are like funny? This is making me laugh out loud while I'm playing it. So because of that, it's one of my favorite games. It's one of my favorite games experiences. I don't think games wise, it's going to like, if you were to play it now, you would probably have a lot of gripes based off of kind of how much advancements have been made in the video game industry. But for me, when I played it, it rocked my world, and it was fun to revisit it because you forget the jokes, the characters. There's just so much charm that I love.
I love it. I bet too, on like, revisiting it, there's probably stuff you maybe didn't even see the first time that you're like getting to see, which it's not always easy to identify playing something 10 years later, but
totally.
But thanks for sharing, dude. Teo, as you know, you just finished out your campaign for the Justice for Zach. What are your closing thoughts leaving this game?
I guess like I said in the beginning, it ain't no Tony Hawk.
Oh, it's weird. He says that about every game he plays.
Every game. Like, it ain't no Tony.
To be fair, that we should be measuring all games against the Tony Hawk series.
Yeah, we really should be. That's the bar. No, but I think, it is an incredible game. Like, it accomplished what it was trying to do. I think that's really impressive. For me now, like, it is what I'm most interested in the entire Psychonauts series is this like window into game development in this documentary series.
Yeah.
That to me is like the most fascinating part. And to be able to see like kind of the behind the scenes of how like decisions are made. And like just to be a fly on the wall. And also create these like parasocial relationships with all these like people who all these employees of a company.
Yeah. These poor regular people who are now in the spotlight.
Right. Yeah. If I saw them, I would be like, hey, cool stuff.
You're Kevin Johnson from Double Fine, who's in 5 minutes of the documentary.
Incredible work, buddy.
Yeah.
No, I think that's much more interesting to me now than the actual game itself.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think to that point too, it's interesting. I know that Tim Schafer is like has been a game designer. Like it's not like he came from writing television to then make games, but I feel like it's kind of an interesting peek into what it would be like for people like us to jump into making games, because it's like, what strengths do we have and how can we translate that to actual fun playable games, not just like ones that are entertaining in ways that this one really soars in, but gameplay modes specifically. It's a real challenge to think of that stuff. So I feel like, not that he had a similar experience as like we would going into games, but you can see the hurdles for someone who maybe with this particular set of strengths. Yeah, the for me too, just like, the documentary, which I know obviously is about the sequel that we didn't even talk about today, that maybe I'll get you guys to do next year, was like really eye-opening and absolutely fascinating. And it's like everyone who I've gotten to watch this, which is literally just you guys, it like ate it up. And like you, Ryan, I also looked forward to like every time I cook dinner, I'm throwing on an episode and just really looking forward to that time. And then for me, as far as, this game goes, I ended up really enjoying my time with it. I'm kind of repeating stuff I've said earlier, but the charm, the story, the characters, the aesthetic, just like the humor in this game still stands the test of time. I feel like, what is it? 17 years after the game originally came out. It's impressive, which is always fun because I play a lot of old games and I feel differently about all of them, as I guess you would. But it was cool to play one that was so highly regarded that I was looking forward to, that despite some, gameplay challenges, I loved big time. So shout out to, the team over there at Double Fine. Oh, one thing I didn't point out that I have been thinking about more is the music by composer Peter McConnell. I love the music in this game. I think most of it sort of lives better in the game. It's not something I would necessarily like listen to like on a YouTube playlist, which I do a lot of. But today, as I was driving to across town, I was listening to a podcast about this game, and they opened the podcast with just the title screen music, which I didn't really listen to much when I was playing the game, but it's like a jaunt. It's like a crazy like Nightmare Before Christmas like circus act, which I guess makes sense considering the theming of the game. Yeah, I kind of rambled for a while, but I thought this game was great, and I'm really happy to play it. And folks, it's going to go ahead and do it for co-op episode 41. Stay tuned, because next month we're going to be discussing, I've been really just stressing over what to play for December, but at least myself and one other friend are going to be playing SSX3, which I thought would be a fun sort of like December winter game to play.
Ooh,
so
yeah, now that's a Tony Hawk. That's
Yeah,
close
baby.
to Tony Hawk.
fun to give Teo what he wants. Have you played this or because I had only really played Tricky, but I have 3 which I've been playing.
I definitely have played this game and Tricky. Did you
Yeah.
play them before or after?
Tricky was the first one, and it's the most popular. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think I've only played 3.
Oh, dude, it's awesome.
Yeah.
You like, I mean, I'll get into it on that episode, but coming for you listeners next month will be an episode all about SSX3, and just a little preview for the listeners as well who enjoy this series. Next year, I've got a theme, and the theme next year is going to be sequels. Whether it's sequels to just in general, like this game that I want to cover, or sequels to games that we've covered previously on the co-op series. It should be a lot of fun. But that'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Fellas, the 2 hot guys that joined me today, my 2 psycho nuts, as I'm calling you. Thanks for doing this. Ryan, so glad to have you back on the pod, dude. It was great chatting with you. Is there anything you want to shout out on your way out today?
Not a thing. Thanks so much for having me. It was so fun.
You bet. Thanks for listening to us. Me and Teo just rip apart your one of your top 10 favorite games of all time.
No, listen, it's everything you said was fair.
Listen, my favorite game of all time is Majora's Mask, and that game has countless flaws. Teo, thanks for being back here, buddy. Mr. 4-timer, at least. What do you want to plug? Anything?
I just want to say Tony Hawk, Pro Skater 1+2, and honestly, maybe even 3.
Hey, pretty good
That's
stuff.
about it. That's about where it peaks.
That's great. Teo, thank you so much. As for me, your host, Connor McCabe, on our way out, thank you so much for listening, whether you are a patron over at patreon.com/Super NPC Radio, or if you're listening to this on a free feed someday, or watching on YouTube. Again, give the channel a like, or a subscribe, excuse me. Like the video, share it around if you like. But you can find this stuff in audio form by supporting us on Patreon. So there's a link in the show notes. You can follow me on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And yeah, that'll really do it for this episode of the Call Me By Your Game co-op series. We'll see you next month, talking all about SSX3. Goodbye.